Hello, my dear friends. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to record a drasha Thursday evening or Friday morning, but I must admit that oftentimes it's challenging because it's not easy to come up with a new topic every week. This week, I thought hopefully it won't be hard because Wednesday evening, I traveled to Columbus, Ohio. I spent Thursday doing Kashrus review work for the OU, and I thought traveling, you always meet new people between the Uber driver to the airport or sitting next to somebody on the airplane, or something will happen that will probably be interesting. To my chagrin, I came home last night and nothing exciting happened, nothing of great interest, and I wasn't really sure what I would talk about. I was hoping that maybe when I wake up in the morning, something will, as it often does, popping into my head. Well, sure enough, this morning, something did happen, but it wasn't what I was expecting. And that was, I woke up early to go to the 6:30 minyan. I go to the closet to get my Tallis and Teffilin. It's not there. And I thought, and I searched the whole house, upstairs, downstairs, in the basement, in my suitcase, here, there. I checked everything 3 times. And then I knew, this is terrible. I obviously lost my Tallis someplace between Columbus, Ohio, and coming home. Where did I lose my Tallis and Teffilin? That's like, one of the worst things that can happen is that you lose your Tallis and Teffilin. How am I going to daven? It's terrible. So I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe I was sitting on the plane and I took something out of my suitcase and I left my Tallis on the seat next to me, or maybe in the airport in Columbus, I was sitting there waiting for the plane. Maybe I left the Tallis in the airport. How am I going to find the Tallis in an airport? And I didn't have my name is in Hebrew. Who am I going to contact? How in the world am I going to recover my Tallis? And then, while I'm looking for my Tallis, I see that my phone is not charged. It's almost empty. So I go to my briefcase where I keep my charger. There's no charger. So I'm thinking, oy vey, I'll bet you I must have I remember charging my phone in the Columbus airport. I must have left the charger in the outlet. So I'm losing my mind. I lost my charger and I lost my Tallis. Something's wrong. And this was like just a catastrophe. And I'm thinking about the pasuk in last week's Haftarah. Vatomer Tzion Ozavani Hashem Hashem Shechachoni. The Jewish people said, this was after the Churban. I'm not comparing my situation to the Churban, but I was thinking, I've been forsaken. And here, I went to do a mitzvah. I'm working on behalf of the OU. I'm doing Kashrus review, but God abandoned me, and I'm just losing it. Then, on top of it, I went to look for my wallet, and my wallet's gone. So I'm missing my Tallis and Teffilin, my charger, and my wallet. I figured, that's it. It's time. They're going to ship me off to someplace to the, to retirement house. I'm losing my marbles. I'm not remembering anything anymore. How can I leave my Tallis in an airport, and my wallet, and my charger, everything? Well, after a little while, so I'm thinking, where could I have left the Tallis and Teffilin? What part of the airport? And then it struck me that after I davened in the shul in Columbus, I went to meet with 2 people who were involved in Kashrus, and they brought breakfast to the shul, and we sat in the social hall for at least a half hour. We were discussing the situation. Maybe I left my Tallis on the table next to where we ate breakfast, and when I left, it's not inconceivable that I didn't remember that I should take my Tallis and put it in my suitcase. So I scrambled to find the number for the person that I met. I called, I kept on calling and calling. I couldn't get through. Finally, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I got through to the person. I told them, I think maybe I left my tallis in the shul. Do you mind going and checking? And guess what happened? About a half hour later, he called me up. There's a tallis bag with a blue tallis. It says on it Yud Dalet, initials Lamed Vav Beis Aleph Nun. That's me. It's my tallis. It was in the shul. Wow, what a tremendous relief. At least I have a tallis. And then I put my hand in my pocket to find my keys. And guess what's in my jacket pocket? My charger. I put it, when I was in the airport, I put the charger in the outlet. And then when I was rushing to catch the plane, so I put it, instead of putting it in my briefcase, I put it in my pocket. So there was my charger. And then a little bit while later, I still didn't know where my wallet was, but suddenly I felt something pushing against my back pocket. That's where my wallet was, in the back pocket. So my tallis is on the way. By Monday morning, I'll have my tallis and tefillin back. My wallet is here in my pocket. My charger's in my briefcase. And Baruch Hashem, everything worked out. So I felt such strong hakaras hatov to the Ribbono Shel Olam. And here, I thought the Ribbono Shel Olam abandoned me. And okay, it was a little bit upsetting not to know where my tallis was, but it could have been 1,000 times worse, the whole story. And it could have reflected on my on mental instability. Baruch Hashem, I'm still able to think clearly. I still have my memory. I have my tallis and tefillin. I have my charger, and I have my wallet. And I just felt so much appreciation. And I felt, I jumped to conclusions. God abandoned me. I learned, you have to learn a lesson from everything. The lesson is, don't jump to conclusions. And God doesn't abandon us. God is always there. He's always with us. I saw a beautiful word from the Alshich. The Alshich was one of the great Mekubalim who lived in Tzfas 500 years ago. The beginning of the Parashas says, Re'ei anochi nosei lifneichem hayom bracha u'kala. Behold, I place before you today a bracha and a curse. The bracha is if you do the mitzvahs, the curse is if you don't do the mitzvahs. So all the Meforshim asked, the commentators asked, why is Re'ei singular? Behold, it's talking to the individual. Anochi nosei lifneichem is plural. So the syntax it doesn't match. It should either be Ru'u ani nosei lifneichem or Re'ei ani nosei lifnecha. But you can't start with in singular and switch to plural. So the Alshich says, the Jewish people received the Torah at Har Sinai. There were 600,000 people receiving the Torah. God spoke to all of them. But there's two ways that could be. One way is that God made it a big announcement and everybody heard the same announcement. The other way is God spoke to each person separately. It's like as if each person had ear pods and they were listening and they didn't hear on a loudspeaker. Each person heard the voice of God individually. So that's why it was the latter is what happened. Re'ei, you should see, because God spoke specifically to you. He didn't speak to everybody at the same time. Everybody was listening, but everybody was listening to a private message. So it was Re'ei, because what the pasuk's emphasizing is that you're not just nobody. You're not just one or somebody. You're not one out of 600,000. You're an important individual. Every single person was so important that by Kabbalas Torah, God spoke directly to them. And it so happens that God gave the same message to everyone. And oftentimes we feel, who am I? Does God really care about me? I'm just a plain guy, a simple person. There's millions of people floating around in the world, busy doing their thing. God, is he worried about me? But I'm telling you, I felt that the Hashgacha brought this, the hand of God, taking care of all those problems that I had this morning and fixing them one after the other. And I realized that we talk about Choshe B'Ksherim. about somebody who suspects somebody of wrongdoing when it didn't happen. We could be choshev b'ksherim in the Rebbeinu Shalom as well. We could think, God doesn't care about me. God's not worried about me. God does not have my back. Now, I'm not saying there are plenty of problems, and not every problem gets resolved. Baruch Hashem, my problem got resolved within a period of 2-3 hours. All the elements were fixed. That doesn't always happen, and there's illness, and there's all sorts of things going on. But when you experience God's hand for things like this, and you see how God takes care of it, so then you have to extrapolate and realize that even when the fix is not so obvious, but God always has our back. And the Tomer Tzion Azavani Hashem, that's a mistaken notion that God has abandoned him. God never abandons the Jewish people. And the end of the pasuk is that God says, what are you talking about? If a mother doesn't forget their weaning, the child that they weaned, and even if they would, God says, I never would forget you. And that's not only true about Klal Yisrael, but it's true about the individual. So I got my message through the traveling. It was a little bit unpleasant. I would say it was very traumatic when it happened. I was just beyond myself, and I couldn't, especially my Tallis and Teffilin. Okay, my wallet was like second level, and my charger. Okay, I could buy a new charger. Baruch Hashem, everything worked out. The lesson that I learned is God always has our back, and the Rebbeinu Shalom loves every single one of us, every single individual. I wish everyone, thank you very much for listening. I wish everyone a good Shabbos.